With the recent Millicom Cellular FCPA enforcement action, I thought it might be good to review M&A work in the pre-acquisition phase from the compliance perspective. Compliance Tip of the Day. This is the podcast where we bring you daily insights and practical advice on navigating the ever-evolving landscape of compliance requirements. Whether you're a seasoned compliance professional or just starting your journey, my aim in this podcast is to provide you with a bite-sized, actionable tip to help you stay on top of your compliance game. And now I'd like to say a few words about the latest podcast on the Compliance Podcast Network, AI Today in 5 with 5. Thrilled to announce the inaugural episode of my latest podcast series, AI Today in 5. I wanted to do a short, curated set of stories and news stories about AI for the compliance professional and the greater business professional. You can check it out on Megaphone, the Compliance Podcast Network, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Apple, or wherever great podcasts are listened to. Check out AI Today in 5. Mergers and acquisitions has long been a fertile ground for FCPA enforcement actions, literally going back to the first decade of this century. And here in 2025, we're still having them. So this week, we're going to take a deep dive into the pre-acquisition phase of M&A work. So what's the nature of the problem? Well, if we just look at the Millicom Cellular FCPA enforcement action, it would appear that there was very little pre-acquisition work done, although the enforcement action focused on pre-acquisition conduct by a joint venture. I thought it provided a good jumping off point for a series on pre-acquisition work in M&A. Why should you do pre-acquisition work? Well, clearly, if you purchase a company that's engaging in bribery and corruption, after you conclude the deal, it's no longer they who are doing the bribery and corruption, but it's you. And so you have to, as much as you can, assess what the status of their compliance program is. This week, we're going to take a deep dive into some of the things that you need to do, but it is determinative if you have not done pre-acquisition due diligence. Perhaps not determinative, but certainly an indication of the type of robustness of your compliance program if you do not engage in an exhaustive or lengthy or some type of pre-acquisition phase, because corrupt practices that continue, once again, are now your corrupt practices. When the issue surfaces after pre-acquisition, there is going to be cost. It's going to devalue the whatever monetary amount you paid for the acquisition, and you may not actually, or you may lose money. We've, of course, had instances where companies had to give up acquisitions. A central theme in FCPA enforcement actions is the need for rigorous pre-acquisition due diligence. As a compliance professional, it's your role to ensure that your organization is not inheriting illegal practices, corruption risks, or even unethical practices which could lead down the road to corruption risks when acquiring a new entity. The risks of overlooking these steps can be immense, both in terms of regulatory enforcement and damage to your organization's reputation. So you need to have a seat at the table. You need to understand when an potential acquisition is coming up, and you need to be ready to engage in robust pre-acquisition due diligence and investigation. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Well, number one, you have to determine if anything illegal or unethical is occurring at your target company. Number 2 is, how can you assess the state of your target's compliance program? And then number 3, what about the culture at your target? Not only is it a cultural fit for your organization, but it's a culture that believes in doing business ethically and in compliance and operationalizes its compliance program. All of these takeaways are key questions you'll need to determine in the pre-acquisition phase. And I'm happy to do for you, the compliance profession, is if you have a question or a series of questions you would like some compliance tips on, I'm happy to take any requests that you might want, certainly anonymize them, and give you a quick tip. Either one quick tip or maybe a week's worth of quick tips. So if you have any tips you want about your compliance program, you can shoot me an email at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. This podcast was created and produced with the assistance of AI.